Good morning, or should I say good dawn? It's been a while, channel. Yeah, I don't remember when was the last video I uploaded. I think it's been over a month, and I'm sorry that I have not shaved or at least sprinkled some water on my head. But there's a good reason for it, and that is because I knew that I had to just wake up. I mean, get up as soon as I woke up, spring out of the bed, jump out, and start creating. It's amazing how it works. And I discovered that months ago in December in the midst of certain transformation I was on. Transformation from being chrono- uh, chronically depressed, being depressed for a very long time, and to a state of happiness, to a state of euphoria. At that episode, when it started, it first started. oh, what triggered it was a series of very weird incidents, and then my wife and my son leaving the town, which allowed me to live in the moment. Something that I also had learned in the past month, if prior to that, and which I had also practiced every once in a while, but not constantly. So I whatever came to my mind, I just did as per the instructions of Iman Sararpur. Said whatever good came to your mind, don't think, just do. And that's what I've been preaching in my 10 minutes to a happier you course. And what's amazing is how how deeply it affected me. And to this day, I'm not sure was it the series of extremely out of this world coincidences and incidences that I experienced, or um, was it just that I was on my own and I was just going on my adventures, and other stuff on the list that also happened in a matter of a few days, or what happened afterwards that I'm going to explain that. And what happened afterwards is that, uh, well, first of all, a lot of stuff that I had heard of but never believed in started making sense. I started to believe in them, and the more I believed in them, the more I could explain things that I was unable to before. And I would woke up. I would wake up, and keep in mind, I was still on depression pills, very mild one, almost lowest dose, starting dose of 100 milligrams of bupropion HCl, Wellbutrin, that is the brand name, and I have fortunately reduced it myself. Like I told my doctor, dude, you have to reduce it. I'm having side effect, and she was like, let's add something else. I was no, no, enough. I've had enough side effects with these chemicals. Fortunately, I had learned to take control myself, and I told my doctor, let's stay with Wellbutrin, starting dose for a while, and give myself time. And I'm so glad. I'm so lucky. You have no idea what the stakes were. I could have been in a mental institution right now. thing is serious, and I'll tell you the stories that I heard when I shared my own experience to other people, and people, and one thing could lead to another, and uh, when your body starts figuring out uh, its own problems, and your brain starts to adjust its own chemicals if there are boosters in your body, as was in my case. You will you, when your pineal gland might like decalcify in a matter of days or seconds, or other processes that you know uh, might have happened. I don't know, but all of a sudden, for my case, everything started making sense, and then I started recording. Well, I couldn't write those things down because the, the speed of the rushing thoughts. So I was transformation had already happened. But then another thing was that I started recording my own voice. Back then it was in Farsi, and because simply I couldn't write them down, it was the flow of thoughts were so quick, and I started writing down. Then I thought, okay, it's not working. I started recording, and after a while, this stutter of mine that I had ever since I remember, and it stemmed from me trying to always finding the perfect word uh, for a sentence. It affected me both in English and Farsi, and during talking, it was I think third or fourth hour of my recordings. All of a sudden, I went through this mental process, and I just fixed it. And by the end of that same recording, I was fluent. I was 10 times more fluent. If you have listened to me back then, I was constantly and then all this mumming would also affect my concentration and focus on topic. I do jump around topics often and easily. Back then, it used to hurt me. It used to hurt my charisma. It used to hurt my something that would just come up and linger, in my mind, and kind of torture me. You're losing focus again. That inner voice you have to tell you shut the fuck up. So yeah, I became all of a sudden a lot more fluent and charismatic, and I could hear myself. I could hear speakers, aged speakers in my own voice. People, other Farsi speaking speakers that I would sound like, and it amazed me. And that was when I became so excited when I talked that I would shout, that I would scream, I would jump around. Have you seen the speakers that are so much in the zone? They would jump around and they would like bang it, like these televangelists that would bang their hand on their Bible or something like that. So I was just like that, so excited, too excited, because I was not myself. There were chemicals in my body, specifically the psychomorphic, that was acting like a psychedelic. And only when I spoke, when I talked. Not so it's a very important detail because it's very easy to misinterpret what happened to me. And even my doctor, my lost, my lost doctor. Why am I telling she's lost? Because to this day, she has not yet understood what happened. She is very unaware of the mechanism that I went through. I agree that it's rare, but as a doctor, people should know that. That's why we have people who are affected by these chemicals in terrible, terrible ways. And the more I'm telling this story to people around me, to people who are, I feel that are receptive of this story, the more stories I hear back from them. It makes me wonder, are these pills good and side effect free for anyone? It's a very important question. So, back to the reason that I have not shaved. I'm thinking about making another video, but now let's just keep going. So, at the time I could call myself as if I was in a manic episode when I talked. And because it was nothing happened to me, it could very easily be misinterpreted as a bipolar manic, which might as well be categorized as such. But I think it's wrong to put a label on it in a way that misses the point, in a way that one would forget about how it happened and gives you the impression that my body, was susceptible to this occurrence, and that's why it happened. The story was different. The same pill I was on for years, for months, just a few years before that. And that never happened to me. And I had been on other different pills and a lot of other pills in the same category. It's the same class of antidepressants. But that was not something that ever happened to me. Does that mean that's not bipolar manic episode? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that that's not what happened. What happened was some series of events shook me out of my state, my mental state. And all of a sudden, I learned to become happy. And in the midst of all that, I started talking. I started realizing that I have a passion for speaking, that it makes me happy, makes me extremely happy. And because these booster chemicals were still flowing in my blood from months of taking it, just imagine the half-life of that pill, and I've been taking it for weeks, if not months. And there also might have been residue of other pills that I took before they gave me side effects and I stopped taking them. So they might also still be in my blood. But then when I talked and and I and I started hearing things for the first time, when I spoke about interesting subjects, deep subjects, and I could hear, and I would say, "Wow, what did I just say? That's amazing!" And I hadn't heard that before. I was just figuring out at that very moment. And unfortunately, I have a lot of those. I mean, all of those recorded. And they're in Farsi, and I will probably go through them and listen to them. But I'm sure there will be a lot of interesting stuff in it. I remember some of the stuff, and it amazed me. It amazed me, and it gave me this intense feeling of euphoria. While I was speaking, I acted unusual, and only when I was speaking. I'm a crazy driver. I love driving. I love speeding. Just got a speeding ticket that I just paid for just a few weeks ago. But I had I I had never driven so sober in my entire life than at those days. I remember clearly. I would I would another thing, like I would like sometimes like dancing while I'm driving. Like I would dance, and that also gives me a lot of pleasure. I also love dancing. It was kind of my thing. None of that turned me on, mentally. Uh, Gave me so much pleasure as much as speaking did, and none of them like made me act abnormal, unusual. So, uh, so whether or not we should call it a bipolar manic, what that episode I was in, we should definitely not lose the sight of the fact that it was caused by a series of chemicals that for a very long time had been harmless to me. But they were in my body, and some very weird things happened to me that shook me out of my state. Made me realize a lot of stuff that I've always been exposed to and I've always heard or read about. And all of a sudden, I started to find deep realities in them, find truth in them. And it started explaining a lot of things that were either bothering me at the time or things that are just simply, important to your well being, to your life, and your happiness. They would all be categorized under spiritual stuff, if I want to be more specific of what they were. And I would like to talk. I would like to talk about love, talk about life, talk about our higher self. And it made me scream, made me jump up and down. life started right then. A life that was no longer depressed. And I'm glad that no one forced me into a mental institution, because a few of the stories that I've heard of the people who went through something like very similar, something, have this weird experience, and they started realizing stuff, and they were already on depression pills, and they started acting weird. They were forced into a mental institution. And when if you go there at that stage, like, I'm doing great, I've never felt so happy before. Whatever comes out of your mind, your mouth, would kind of convince those professionals in there about this not normal. They would give you other pills. You would be in this endless cycle of fighting with these chemicals, because now your body is self-sustained. You bring about all the chemicals, all the good chemicals, all the happy hormones. You can just make them by putting yourself in the right state of mind. But no, then there's this booster or this inhibitor, that is not letting you find your balance. And then some poor patients I've heard about, they start fighting taking the pills. And that's a sad story. That's a sad story of misdiagnosis. God help them. God help them out of those places, if they truly are able to figure it out on their own. I feel for them. So a lot happened during then and now. I started this channel, my new baby, my new life, and possibly a new profession of mine, speaking for the public. And then it all stopped. A lot of distractions came about. The love of my life, my beautiful Elmira, as we call her in our own language. She set me free. It sounded like a motion of anger, but it was, now I think it was really love, because although she acknowledged that I was being a happier person, I was no longer the same person. With the same goals of becoming, an engineer, and lived a simple life. Our ideologies were already very, very far apart. But all the small pieces that kept us together all of a sudden disappeared. And she made a decision to split, and that was a big distraction. And I also started writing. I took this amazing writing workshop, and I kind of directed my creativity into writing, and then I stopped this thing. And just about a week ago, this habit of mine that I adopted, in December when I was on that episode, in this crazy episode, that I would just wake up and record. I would wake up and write down. I mean, get up, jump out of the bed as soon as I woke up. Uh, I I went back to sleeping normal, the crazy misguided normal. For me, because I don't get a long sleep, never have my entire life ever since I was a little boy. I would wake up in the middle of the night, or it would take me hours of rolling in bed until I went to sleep. Now I only go to sleep when I'm exhausted. So as soon as I put my head in the pillow, 10 seconds, 30 seconds later, I'm out. Then I always, between 3 to 4 hours after that, I wake up. Sometimes after a couple hours. Now, and then I learned that I should just jump out and start creating. Because at that time, I was on my creative mode. I was able to speak words or write down words that I was hearing for the first time. And they were not simple words. They were not any words. They were very insightful. They were very deep. And things definitely worth saying and definitely worth hearing. And it amazed me. Back then, it still amazes me to this day. So that's why I did not shave. It was, if I shaved for 10 minutes, I would have lost 10 minutes of creativity. Or maybe probably more. Because once you keep creating, so when I woke up this morning, I just started writing down. I wrote up this, like 10 minutes, and then I typed in stuff for another 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And I started recording. Creativity. And I've, ever since that happened to me, I started doing that, and I was almost going crazy with wow, me being able to create, finding these hidden parts of me that was hidden. It was like a light that was almost off for I remember for like 13, 14 years, right about before I got married. All those years I had not written much, have not been my creative self. Then all of a sudden I learned how to be, and I knew a lot of friends that were great artists, and there were huge potential in them. I told them, dude, you have to wake up earlier. Just wake up get up whenever you woke up in the middle of the night and start improvising. Improvise your music, or just paint whatever. Just start painting. And I don't think anybody listened to me. Probably because I was sounding like a crazy person at the time. But then I stumbled upon this book, The Artist's Way. And it kind of one of the very first thing it teaches you as basic tools you should do every day is write the morning pages that I started with today. Just write down non-stop. It's amazing how I came up with it myself. Julia Cameron, she changed the world with her book, with her teachings, before it became a book. And one of her primary tools I had figured out myself. So next time I talk to my friends, well, I'm gonna sound a lot more sane, and there's gonna also be a book that backs up my claim. All right, I think 30 minutes is too much already. I'm glad I got all of those stories out of my chest, off of my chest. And thank you for listening. I love you.